Oh, man, I love these marathon council sessions. Woo-hoo. Right, I know you don't believe me when I say that. I just wanted to have it answer any questions. I wanted to give you some updates. We're down to just about 9,300 households without power, which is a huge improvement. And there are only 2 high water locations currently being monitored by HPD, or actually only one. I see Allen Parkway in Montrose, which is nearby, but the I-45 northbound at State Highway 242, 59, and that's the frontage road, not the highway itself. I think all the main lanes are passable. We have traffic movement on all our freeways, but I-45 northbound at State Highway 242, some frontage road problems still. 59 East Tex northbound at San Jacinto River and southbound at San Jacinto River. You cannot come under to do a U-turn, but the 59 is operating normally. State Highway 6 at Savannah Parkway, there's still some issues there. State Highway 6 at Grand Boulevard, one of the main lanes, but others are open. And FM 2920, after State Highway 249 and Tomball Parkway, they still have all the main lanes shut down there. But you know, the challenge yesterday, among others, was the fact that some parts of the city had really very little impact, and other parts of the city were hit very, very hard, and trying to have messages for everybody. And first and foremost, being concerned about the potential loss of life. And we keep revising the number. We now have confirmed that we have 6 fatalities and 1 known still missing, and we're going to continue a recovery search for him, and that should we'll obviously report as soon as possible. 3 of those who we lost were in vehicles that went into underpasses with a significant amount of water. And while the Bible's coming over their banks is a fairly rare occurrence, unfortunately, having water in our street system, which is part of our overall drainage infrastructure, is something that it's part of the way it's built. And while many of our intersections have flood gauges, some of them have gates and so forth, barriers when water reaches a certain depth. This is just something that we have to really impress upon folks, that turn around, don't drown, that as you see rising water, you've got to be patient and pull over. Again, current situation, we've been catching a little bit of a break from the weather. We're only actively monitoring the northwest Cypress Creek kind of area, Spring Creek, and the amount of water in the Lake Houston, Lake Conroe, and how much they're having to release coming downstream. We had windshield estimates yesterday of structural damage to properties, and we still think that there may be a few thousand properties that had water inside, which is different from have they experienced structural damage or significant flooding. But there's, at this point, the estimate's been revised downward from that total number of about 1,400 structures with that may have structural damage, but we're going to continue the assessment and try to get a good number on that. And the reason it's it's, again, we're gonna do whatever we do, but the reason that that's important as we quantify that, it's tied to our request for FEMA assistance under the state's disaster declaration. We did have one water treatment plant in Maryland that was submerged, but it was quickly shut in, no impact on the water. And I want to emphasize, the City of Houston's drinking water is fine. We've had no impacts whatsoever. There are some folks scattered around Houston and in the broader community that have their private wells. And if their property and their wells were underwater, they can contact the City of Houston, and we're happy to test the water for them before they start using it again. Until they can be tested, we're happy to, we suggest that they boil the water, but we're happy to test. We just want to make sure everybody is safe there. And we had one wastewater plant inundation. That was the Southwest Wastewater Treatment Plant on BeachNut. Again, it's Braze Bio, got submerged, and there was a release of untreated wastewater into bio at that point, and will report to TCEQ, but no impact on separate drinking water system, and we're just making a public declaration of that. I know most of you all have the information on those we lost, and I don't have any names to release at this point. The medical examiner's office has not, I think, formally released any of those remains, and when that happens, obviously we'll be notified. Still asking folks if they have structural damage to their homes, call 311. And release the number to all of you about cars are towed. What's 1,083, something like that? 1,083 cars that were towed across the city of Houston. Better to leave your car and have to go find it again later than to stay in the floodwaters. So, but I did ask earlier, and I'm going to turn, not a good press conference here, I'm going to turn and say, are we working to give them like 24 hours or something, so we're still working on the storage. You're going to get charged for the tow, but we're hoping to be able to give some relief on the storage charges. I think that's all I have to report at this point. I'm happy to answer questions.
Mayor, when was the last body discovered?
Today, this morning.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
This was West Park at...
Southwest River.
Yeah.
And that was one that had been missing. Now it's a confirmed fatality, correct?
Wasn't the one that we were showing as missing. The person that we were showing as missing, we had the water rescue yesterday. We had 2 firefighters and 4 civilians. Boat struck something in the water and flipped over. The 2 firefighters and 1 of the civilians made it to shore. 3 people were swept away. Those were ones we were calling missing. 1 of those people is still missing. And we did not know about this particular. We had eyes on those folks when they went in the water, and that's why. So we know there is still 1 person missing.
As of this morning, it was 2 victims unaccounted for and 5 fatalities. And then the 6th came out, but now there's only 1 missing.
One of the folks that we listed as missing, what they believe that is one of them.
What's the name of the person that's still missing?
I have not been authorized to release that at this time.
Can you tell us if it's a male, age?
It is a very elderly male. I believe he's in his 80s. It was a family unit that was being evacuated from their flooded home, and man and wife and his daughter. The daughter survived. The wife has recovered.
About the Southwest Waste Plant, 100,000 gallons were spilled, the wastewater were spilled to the area. What is the concern for the residents in that area?
You know, anytime we have a flooding situation, one of the reasons that we tell people to stay out of the water, even as the water begins to recede, and dangerous situation has subsided, kids want to play in the water and so forth, water was moving fast. It's probably out in the Gulf of Mexico right now, but we don't know that. And the floodwaters, these floodwaters have been moving across large swaths of territory. You have no clue what may be in the water, so we really want people to stay out of the water. Again, it's not, didn't have any impact on our water supply for the city of Houston, but the water itself, let the floodwaters drain, stay out of the water, stay away from the water. Again, and even what appears to be shallow floodwaters could, things happen, manhole covers get popped up and swept away, and so folks will be out, cruising through their neighborhood and step in and are gone into the storm sewer system. So everybody just needs to be aware and careful of the water.
The wastewater plant, you mentioned no threat to the water here in the city. What was the extent of testing conducted to make sure that that was in fact the case?
Well, we test our water supply on a regular and routine basis. This wastewater treatment plant, the overflow was into Brays Bio during the flood. So I don't know what you're talking about in terms of.
Sure, was the test conducted after this? After
no, I mean we know how much we know what the outfall or the excursion is. I think the term they use. We know what the excursion was, and we're not going to spend a whole lot of time testing the floodwaters because we know there's a whole lot of other stuff. Again, floodwaters have picked up. Stay out of the water. Our focus is on making sure that drinking water is safe, and we'll follow all of the protocols outlined by TCEQ.
Sure, you talked about the boat that capsized and the 3 people on. Again, 2 people accounted for, 1 person still missing. Do you know what the boat struck, or where does that investigation stand currently?
There's no investigation. We were all, in fact, we were in the emergency command center, and there was a helicopter overhead. There's no telling. It could have been a tree. It could have been anything carried by the water. It was under the surface of the water. The boat went over it, flipped the motor up, started spinning the boat, and it went sideways to the current, and that was it.
Can you talk a little bit about city infrastructure damage? I know a number of police cars, so forth damage. What's the latest count when it comes to that stuff?
I'm sorry, you asked a question about somebody having.
City infrastructure, what
We
kind of
have-
damage we're looking at, police cars, so on and so forth.
Lots of different types of city infrastructure. We know we have some damage, Buffalo Bio flowing into our parking garage. The city uses parking garage across the street. Major investments in the Buffalo Bio Park. It's actually not city dollars, it's foundation dollars, but we know that the new guard shack at the police memorial had 6 feet of water inside it. There is some of the Parks Department maintenance facility in Memorial Park. Minor stuff. We're going to do a soup to nuts assessment, but those are the highlights for buildings. In terms of vehicles, I have a list. I'm going to ask Mr. Newport to speak to that. Although I have a little bit of difficulty. Some of the vehicles, they were went through the shop, and we were turning them back out as fast as we could. I just handed me a note that showed me. Because we're all doing this on the fly. And,
You want it?
the vehicle.
You got the same note.
Yeah, thank you.
Total of 66 city vehicles were lost or damaged due to the flood. Of the 66, 20 were HFD vehicles, 30 were HPD vehicles, 9 fleet management, 1 office of business opportunity, 1 legal department, 1 mayor's office of special events, 2 general services department, and 2 public works engineering.
Yeah, the ones like the legal department and so forth, they were just in the bottom parking garage.
15 of them were in
Yeah.
the
Garage.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, most of it is when we place police cars at these flooded intersections to keep people from driving into the high water. That police car then often ultimately goes into high water, and then it's just it's a call we have to make.
As you make the damage assessments, and that will take a while, but it just, unfortunately, we're also starting the budget process. What's the process for incorporating new damage into tweaking the budget?
At this point, we don't really anticipate a major budgetary impact. Again, if you watch the national news, you thought the whole city of Houston was under 20 feet of water or something. But for city facilities, we came through it really well. We are insured, and we're working to see what the liability is for Houston First to take control of our parking garage. We have our own automobile vehicle maintenance facilities, and again, that's damaged vehicles. Many of them are already back out on the street because we're running them back out as fast as we can. The fleet will be a concern, and one of the reasons that we have a $20 million emergency fund, cash emergency fund, is to tap in situations like this. And as part of my budget, I put, I think, $1.25 million in to start inching the number up, so we may be able to cover it with the emergency fund. And with our disaster declaration, these costs and others above and beyond our normal cost of doing business, like overtime and so forth, may be reimbursable by FEMA. So right now, for the city, we don't think it'll have a significant budgetary impact.
Mayor, can you talk about some of the improvements that were made after Tropical Storm Allison, some of the hardening measures that were taken, especially downtown and the medical center? How do you feel like those held up? Were they worth the investment?
The capital improvements that were made, both publicly and privately, after Tropical Storm Allison absolutely proved their worth in this storm. Now, this is probably the most significant flooding we've had since Allison, but it wasn't anything like the scale of Allison, and because Allison was really citywide, and sheet flooding in places that have never flooded. What we had here was flooding in the low-lying areas and the underpasses, not unexpected, and then the bios going over their banks. A lot of the work that was done in water management was done along Brays Bio. Big sections of the bio have been widened, deepened to convey more water. And the medical center invested heavily in floodgates and in moving, relocating assets to keep them out of harm's way. Texas Medical Center was protected, and that in itself was worth the investment that was made along Brays Bio. We got water in because the floodgates were not deployed, but there are a number of other places where floodgates were installed in downtown where white oak and buffalo meet, and that seems to have proven itself because that was another major flood zone. So we're pretty satisfied with how the infrastructure held up. Although that takes me to another issue, that the floodwaters can undermine bridges and overpasses, and we're getting out and making sure that those are safe as soon as the conditions in those areas are safe for our people to be, and we're out there to make sure that there's not hidden infrastructure damage.
You mentioned the damage to Buffalo Bio. A lot of those improvements there are new. Some of the landscaping. Are you
We haven't
worried
had
about
the ribbon
that?
cutting. We haven't had the ribbon cutting yet. I was over there last night along Buffalo Bio, and I think it's, I don't know, a couple of weeks, and we're supposed to have a big grand opening. It's the acid test for those improvements, and frankly, from just at the level the water was last night, it looks like a lot of it held up pretty well. It is designed to accommodate floods, and you have to understand that the work in the bio started from way below the water line in terms of bank stabilization and working in working back, flattening some of it out to have more capacity. The only thing I'm worried about really at this point is whether, as they clean it off, we have a lot of, there are lights down there, and whether the